show it. So we talked about lists last time, and I don't know how to zoom off of the top of my head from my keyboard, but I had this little thing. If you want to look at it, I'll copy it here and put it in the Zoom chat. I just wanted to include some real world stuff that you can use lists for, because I know sometimes it's a little weird to be learning how to code and you have no clue how this might be applied. So I thought I would, if I was a student, I would like to know how my teacher actually used the code that they were teaching. So anyway, I just had a little snippet of code for my actual job where the purpose was to get some data. I was doing something called web scraping, which is where you use your code to go onto the internet and scrape the text off of a certain web page. And then for each word in that web page, I was adding it to a list. So you can kind of tell that from the code, but anyway, just thought it was interesting. Okie doke. So you can see what you need for today is Replit. And I'll go ahead and get started. All right, so as always, we have this scientific computing with Python course. I always talk about it. One announcement I wanted to make, I will be traveling for work next week. So I'll be traveling from Monday to Friday, so it'll include when we're normally in class. We will still have class, but my screen might look a bit different. I just wanted to give you a heads up. I'll be using my laptop instead of my desktop. So the camera, the lighting, the background might all be different. I'll also be on hotel Wi-Fi, so the internet may not be great. So please be patient with me if I have trouble like logging on to Zoom or switching my screens or posting the recordings.
Okay, we will.
Oh, thank you. So I also won't really be able to stay after class while I'm traveling because I'm doing it for work, so I have to do work stuff a lot that week. And then so I won't be super available that week, but we'll still have class. But if you need to ask me a question or email or me or something, just find one of the TAs and ask them instead. I'll be going to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a conference on environmental data science. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. This is actually, I've been to a couple conferences, but I started my job completely remote because of COVID, and I'm still remote. So I work from home, and I haven't met like most of my coworkers. So going to conferences like this is actually where I meet a lot of the people that I would be working with in the office. So yeah, should be fun. Okie doke. So first, what I wanted to do is review lists. So last time we talked about lists, and we really sped through it. So I just want to make sure we all have it really in our brains. So first of all, when we talked about lists, it's a collection of items, and they're separated by commas, and they're surrounded by brackets. The first thing that we did with lists is we learned how to get the length of a list, which is just the number of items in that list. And we use this with the Len function, so Len, and then in parentheses, and then you put in your list name, so the name of that actual variable. Next, we talked about list indexing. And as we learned to list indexing, every index in Python starts at 0. So the first element is actually 0. So if we have this list name and then brackets is how we access a specific indexed item. So if we want to access the first element of a list, we're going to have the list name, then open bracket, close bracket. Inside that, we put 0. I have this general one. So list name I. Here, I'm just using I as like a placeholder just for any number that is less than the length of the list. So any number that is part of, any number that is part of the range of the list index. So it'd be 0 to the length minus 1. You can access that number element just by putting the number there. And then one thing that I kind of touched on but didn't explicitly say is that if you want to access the last element in a list, you can do the list name and then in brackets -1. You can do negative indexing, so you can actually keep that going and access the second to last element by -2, third to last -3. So mostly just using -1 is really useful if you know that you have a really long list. You don't exactly know how many elements are in there, but you know you want the last one. So then you can just say list brackets -1. Okay, so, and the last thing that I wanted, well, one of the last things I wanted to look at for lists is using for loops. So we say for I, the I, remember, can be any name as long as it's not a variable you've previously defined. It's just a placeholder or a dummy or an iterator. So you say for I or item in your list. And so you would replace list name here with the actual list name. And this will loop once per item in the list. So for each one, if you have a list that's 0, 1, 2, then it'll go through the list 3 times for each item in that list. So go through for 0, go through for 1, and go through for 2. So that is our quick overview of just lists in general. Are there any questions on these or clarifying comments? As always, feel free, if I'm going too fast, to just put answers in the chat or raise your hand or something. All right. So next, oops, sorry. Arrow keys weren't working. Okay. So then we also talked about list methods. These are just special functions that you can access with the dot at the end of your list name, and the 4 that we went over were append, which adds an item to the end of the list, remove, which removes one item from the list, sort, which sorts the list alphanumerically. So 1 through 10, and then A through Z. And then you can also add what's called an argument. We'll talk about that more today, where you say list name dot sort. And then if you add reverse equals true inside the parentheses here, it'll actually do it in reverse alphanumeric order. So it'll start at Z, or it'll start at the largest number. And then another function or another method that we learned was reverse, which just reverses the order of the list. This is not like sort where it puts anything in a specific order. It just takes the order that you put the list in, and then it just reverses that exactly. So the last element becomes the first element, and so on and so on. So we, like I said, we access these with the dots here, and you just put that, you have the name of your list, and then dot sort or dot append. All right, are there any questions on these methods? If not, we'll talk a little bit briefly about lists, and then we'll move on to strings. Not seeing any questions come in. I hope that's because people are understanding and not because you're too confused to ask questions. All right. So I just added this thing. I kind of went over it last time, but okay, too confused to ask. Oh no. Okay, Donovan, so I think you weren't here last class. So hopefully you've watched the video. If you haven't, it will definitely help to watch the video. Okay, you did. Okay, then we can go over lists a little bit more. So let's see. First of all, I'm just going to say we have these list methods. And so I showed you like this whole long thing of like dot append, dot remove and stuff. And I'm not expecting you, no one expects you to just remember all of these and have like a dictionary in your head of all of these Python methods. A lot of times you'll just be Googling them and just looking for the keywords here, but it's good to know how to use them. So most of the time I've used append. Sometimes I use remove. So you saw that in the example code that I sent over, I had the dot append. And like I said, Google is your friend. So a helpful web page here is W3 Schools is a great website. They have a lot of pages on everything coding. So I would definitely look at that. And then we talked about lists, but there's other things, but I just put that in there if anyone was interested. Okay, so let me go do a better review of lists. And I'll start at the beginning this time. I mean, yeah, you could use the official Python website, but I like W3 Schools. Okay, so another thing on that, because it was in the chat. Someone said, if you're not looking at the chat, someone said, why don't you just use the Python website? That's just because sometimes people that write the code aren't the best people to document the code. And other people are really good at writing about code better than the Python people are. So that's all I will say about that. All right, so first of all, let's review back from last class. We talked about a list. This is just a series of values where you are going to store collections of data. If you're familiar with other programming languages, you can think of these as arrays. they're just going to store multiple values separated by commas. So kind of like if you've ever worked with like a CSV file, comma separated values, it's just values separated by commas. It's its own data type, and it's denoted by open and closed brackets. So just these brackets here show how to create a list. So we have 1, comma, 2, comma, 3. And so you see the different elements here in the commas. Sorry if I hesitate sometimes, it's because I'm reading questions that people send me and I want to make sure I answer them. Okay, so in Python, it's denoted by these brackets here and separated by commas. These can contain any type of data type and mixed data type. So it can contain numbers like ints and floats. It can also contain strings. And it's ordered. So what I mean by ordered is that the order of the list matters. So a list of 1, 2, 3 is different from a list containing 3, 2, 1. They contain the same basic elements, but it's in a different order. So we talked about like the list.reverse method. So if I did called list.reverse on this list here, it would actually turn it into this list. So flipping the order really does matter. And you can't have duplicates. Like I said, it's literally just a list. You can think of it like data. Like if you took temperature readings every day and you said, okay, today at noon, the temperature is this. And then the next day at noon, it was this. And you collected all of those numbers and you separated them by commas, that's a list. Okay, so before I get into other reviews of lists, are there any questions about what lists are? Are there any parts that we're kind of confused on? I just want to make sure I know where we're getting stuck. Okay, so how about this? How about if you can do a thumbs up emoji either in the Zoom reactions or the Discord chat or the Zoom chat. Thumbs up if you're good on this slide here, and some other emoji if you're not good on this slide here. All right, so thumbs up if you're good on this slide, some other emoji if you're not. Okay, so I'm seeing a mix of emojis. Okay, so basically we had our, here, I'll pull up an example here. So we had our, what we call primitive data types, so like int. So like if I had a equals 3, and I had b equals 4, these are all ints. We have the same for strings. So we have a equals hello, b equals goodbye. Those are strings. We also had floats where there's decimals. And so what a list does, it lets you make a group. So if I want a list of numbers, I could just do 1, 3, 4, 8, 2, something like that. So this right here is a list. And that's how you define a list, is you set your variable name just like always. You have the assignment operator, and then you have your square brackets to show that it's a list. And we separate these elements by commas. Lists can have any kind of data type in them. So we can say my list equals hello, h through 5. So you can have any kind of data type in them. So int, float, string. Can make this a float if I wanted. And this is just a way for us to keep a list of data. It's kind of like if you are making a grocery list and you want to see like what you need on your grocery list. You don't just want a bunch of random words everywhere. You want one piece of paper with all of the things that you need from the grocery store on it. That's kind of like what a list is in Python. You keep your data in one place. So, wrong slides. So we'll get a bit of practice with those, and then we'll move on to strings. But so you construct it using these brackets. So my list equals 1, 3, 5, 7, something like that. But make sure that they're in the brackets. I have this here, but don't worry about this for now. I just want you to understand that you can set a list with brackets. All right. And then we also talked about list length. So the length of the list is how many items are in it. So if I go here, if I want to find the length of A, for example, we could count the length ourselves. We could see that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements in it. We can also use the len function, so it's len, and then inside goes the name of your list. I want to print the length of that list. I can say print len A. If I run this, 5. And we can count it, like I said, we can count it ourselves, and that lines up with what we did. So we can also have an empty list. This would have the length of 0. Or we could just have a list with one thing in it. And that has a length of 1. So are there any questions about length specifically? About list length? I did see one question. Does Replit have an app? I don't know.
I think it could. I mean, I don't see why not.
Yeah, it might. All right, we got some jokers. Okay, so any questions on list length? All right, now I'm nervous because you guys said that you don't have questions because you're too confused. That's a good question. Is there a limit to list length? Technically, yes. For your purposes, no. With computers, there's always some sort of memory limit, but I would be hard pressed to find you guys making programs that would reach that limit. So not a limit you need to worry about. Okay. Donovan, are you asking a question? I can't tell. Oh, okay. Is that the limit? I don't know. The limit is something. The limit is something that I have never had to worry about. So, okay. So, all right. Replit is going to have an app, but they haven't released it yet. Okay. Okay. The second thing we learned about lists was, okay, yeah. Please just keep the chat for questions because otherwise I just look at it and then it distracts me. Okay, so then we talked about looping over lists. So we have each item in a list and we can loop over it. So we talked about that for loops is the best loop for this because that is a loop that iterates over a specific, we used it with the range function, which actually what the range function does is creates a list. So if we wanted to loop over a list, then we would say, we would define our list. So in this case, I have my list equals, and in brackets, I have hello and then world. And then I want to say for I in my list, print I. So let's just try this out. So I'm going to define a list. Sorry, my mouse is dying, I think. Okay. Okay, please don't send anything other than class questions in the chat. All right. Okay, that's okay. I wasn't sure what that was. Okay, sorry, responding to questions in the chat. All right, so my list equals hello, comma, world. So you can define your own list like that. And then if I want to print each item in there, I can say for I in my list, print I. And what this is going to do is it's going to go through the list and print each element in the list. So it goes hello and then world. Okay, we talked about lists can even have lists inside them. You don't really need to worry about that right now if we're just reviewing over it. Let's see, what else did we talk about? And then we talked about changing lists and accessing things in index. So here, let's do an index example. So we have my list equals hello world. And then, okay, Donovan, I'm going to need you to stop spamming the chat. All right, so I'm going to say my list equals hello world. And if I wanted to access the first, so I'm going to have a print statement just to print the first element of the list. I'm going to print my list and then what goes inside these brackets. Go ahead and put in the chat what should go inside these brackets here if I want to print the first element of the list. So I've already defined my list up here, and now I want to use what we talked about was indexing and print the first element. Yeah, Michael?
0?
Yeah, exactly, 0. And I'm seeing some people put that in the chat too. So yeah, if we want to access the first element of the list, we're going to use 0, and then this will print hello because that is the first element. Yeah, exactly. So that's how a little bit how we do indexing. If we wanted to access the second element of the list, we would do 1 because it starts at 0, so the next one is 1. This will print world, which is the second element in the list. Let's say I had some others like 6.8, 4, and then 10. I could access the third element in the list by getting the index 2 and then print that. And if I wanted to get the last element in the list, in this case, I know that the index would be 3. So I could do that and it would get our last element. But like I talked about, you can also use something called negative indexing. And it's just accessing the -1 element of the list, which is just the last one. And that still returns 10. So that's what we have on indexing. And that's just a basic review of everything that we did with lists. The other stuff are methods that here, if you want to look at the methods, we have them listed somewhere around here. Yeah, so we have our basic one, we have append. If you want to add an item to a list, you can use this append. So this example here has fruits list.append watermelon. If we want to add the fruit watermelon to our list of fruits. Have another one for removing an item, sorting the items, and reversing the order of the list. Would -2 be second to last? Yes, it would. So you can keep going with negative numbers, just like you can go with positive numbers. Okay, so are there any specific questions about lists? Thumbs up if you feel good about lists and you want to move on, or some other emoji if you want to keep going over lists and do some examples. So thumbs up. I'm going to do it by majority. So if I have a majority, someone sent me a clapping emoji that sounds positive, but is not a thumbs up.
I think they meant to hit the thumbs up button because the clapping button's right next to it.
Okay. Okay, I think I saw mostly thumbs up. Michael, okay, good, you put your hand down. Okay, so I know some people are not feeling too good about lists, but it looks like most of the class wants to move on. So if you're not feeling too good about lists, you can stay after and I'll do like a little mini session of examples on lists. How about that? Compromise. Okay. And like I said, this website, really good. It's called W3 Schools. This is good for, I mean, they have all kinds, you can see, they have all kinds of programming languages. So here's just a bunch of things about lists, and then they even have list exercises if you want some more practice. And you might even find some of my examples in there because I took inspiration from their fruit list. All right. So now let's talk about strings. Strings are a bit easier to understand. Okay, already talked about this. Okay, so we know what strings are. Strings are the things that we have in double quotes. It's one of the basic data types in Python, and it's surrounded by either double quotes or single quotes. I always recommend double quotes. It's just what I'm used to. We can concatenate these strings with the plus symbol. So if we wanted to add hello and world, what would this one be? Put in the chat what your guess is hello, the string hello plus the hello world will be. It's a, yep. Yeah, Yasher got the, yeah, okay, you guys are getting the trick. I didn't put any white space in there, so it's just hello world. There's no space. And then what about world plus space hello? I went ahead and pronounced the space here in case you didn't see it. Yep, world. So this time there is a space. Yep, so some of you were just like ready for me to trick you. Nope, this time there's a space. So it says world hello. So that's called concatenation. Yeah, that's okay. That's why I said space hello. All right, so that's called concatenation. You can think of it as adding strings, and it just adds in order. So kind of like we had hello plus world is hello world, and then world plus hello is world hello. So it just basically sticks the strings together. We can also compare these strings with the equal sign. This is called the comparison operator. We can see if two strings are equal to each other. So we have hello equal hello, and this will return a Boolean, something like true or false. So what would this return? Hello equal hello. Yeah, seeing some votes come in. Yeah, so it would return true. And now what about this one? We have hello with all lowercase and then hello all uppercase. What would that return? Yeah, so that one would be false. And that's just because of how it's called Aspie characters or Unicode characters, just how this is encoded in the computer. This is actually different message from this. Capitalization matters. So these are just the basic things that we have talked about. Maybe you remember from some past class, but we're going to get more experience with strings today because there's actually a lot that you could do with strings.
You have to use equal signs to compare the length of the letters without using the length method.
Oh yeah, you don't have to use length here. But yeah, we want to use these double equal sign. Okay, but if we want to talk about string length, so we talked about list length, we can also talk about string length. So this is just like if you ask, like, how long is a specific word? How many characters are in a word? How many letters are in a word? Something like that. So string length is just a fancy way of saying the number of characters in a string. Okay, number of characters in a string. Okay, someone asked, I think they're asking about this past one. So yeah, so hello, so these two are the same. So equals would be true. These two are not the same because one is lowercase and one is uppercase. And so that would be false. All right, and with string length, we just count the number of letters or characters in a string. I say characters because this also includes spaces, punctuation, new lines, stuff like that. So just like with lists, the len function or len, it's short for length. So you can say length or len. It gets the length of the string. So if we have len and then the name of your string, it will return how many characters are in that string. So if we have my string equals hello world, and then we print the length of that string, what would this number be?
10 letters plus a white space would make 11.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, David hit it on the head there. So we have 10 letters, but we have a space. So that is 10. I mean 11, whoops. So I'll go ahead and show this to you. So if I have my string equals hello world, and now I want to print the length of my string. It'll be 11. Okay. Too many tabs. Okay, and so just like we talked about with lists before, strings can also be indexed. So just like, so we can get the length, that means we can get individual characters. So if we want to access an individual character inside a string, we can denote that with square brackets, just like we did to index into lists. And don't forget, this starts at 0. So we want to index a string to return the character at that specific position. And like I said, it includes white space. So if you have the name of your string and then in brackets 0, that will return the first character. And then string name and then in brackets I just returns what I'm calling the ith character. This is just
Like
a common
or a number.
No, this can't be a letter right here. It has to be a number. So I'm using I here just as a placeholder for any number that is within the length of the string. So if I want to, let's see, so my string here, my string is hello world. So now if I want to print, so now let's say I want to print the first letter, which is H. I'm going to say my string brackets, and inside the brackets, I'm going to do 0. And if I print that, it should just print H. Yep, just like we thought. If I want to do the, let's see. Let's say I want to do 6. What letter should that print, or what character should that print? Okay, let's be a little nicer in the chat.
It'll print a blank space.
Yeah. Oh wait, let's see. 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 5. Blank space is 5. 6 is W. Oops.
Womp womp.
Yep, that's okay. It's hard to count the little characters with your cursor. Yeah, there we go. So we've got W. Okay, so that's how you can access indexes within a string. Okay, yep. Chat is with correct guesses. Okay. So I have this here, kind of the same thing that we just did, but if I have my string equals hello world and I have it print my string 0 and then my string 5, what characters will it print? Kind of just talked about it, but I just want to make sure. So go ahead and put in the chat what characters it'll print. Yep, it will print a space and an H. So first it's going to print my string 0. Yep, so first it's going to print my string 0, which is H, capital H. Next it's going to print my string 5, which is the space here. And these will be on separate lines. So here, I'll copy this. Hopefully it works copying it over. Ah, that kind of worked, yep. Yep. Ah. Yeah, it's weird to copy things over from Google sometimes. Okay. There we go, H, and then just a space. Yep. So it won't actually show the quotes when it prints strings. Yeah. So it won't actually show the quotes. That's just the way that Python prints it. But when you write out strings, you need to make sure you include the quotes. Okay. Now that we talked about indexing, we can also talk about what's called slicing. So slicing is just accessing a portion or a slice of that string. So
cut it up.
Yeah, cut it up. So we're going to use indexing, where we have a starting index and an ending index. So I is the starting position here. It'll be a number like 0 or 1 or 2 or something. And then J, oh, no, he said cut it up, not Canada. All right. And then J in this case would be the ending position. So like I said before, sometimes when you have like a start and end position, like in our loops, the first one is included, so it'll start on that. And then the ending position is excluded. So it will go up to that, but won't actually include the index of that last one. Okay. So if you want to slice to the end of the string, then put, you don't have to include the ending index. So you can just have the starting one and then this colon here, and then nothing after that. So let me go ahead and show you what I mean by that. So we have here, fruit equals apple, slice equals fruit 1 through 4, and print slice. So if we want to do that, I'm going to paste that here. So I'm going to say fruit equals apple. Now I have my slice. And I did this without even realizing that I was making fruit puns here because we're slicing the string, but it sounds like we're slicing an apple. All right, so fruit equals apple, slice is fruit 1 through 4, and print slice. So if I want to print starting on 1, so it'll start on character 1, and then it'll end before it gets to character 4. So it should print, so P is the one is in the 1 index, and then it'll print the next one. So it'll print P, P, L, and then it'll stop before it gets to 4. So I'm going to run this so you can see. Yep, P, P, L. If I change this to 1 through 5, it'll do P, P, L, E. I can also just get rid of that if I just tell it, oh, just go ahead to the end. And I can change these around. So let's say I want to start on the 3rd index, which would be 0, 1, 2, 3. That's the L. I'm trying to highlight the L. The L is 3. It'll just do L. And the reason for that is that it actually stops before it gets to this one. So let's do a couple. Here, I'll do a couple more examples. So I'm going to use my name in this one. So we have Miranda. Fruit equals Miranda. Okay, I'm going to keep the variable name like that. And then if I want to print the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd characters of my name, what do I need to put inside these brackets? If I want to print MYR.
That's MYR. That'll be 0 to 2.
Close.
But 1 to 3.
Yep. So, well, yeah, okay, so close. So we want it to be, yeah, so Yajir's got it. So we want 0, colon, we actually want 3 because it will stop before it gets to the index 3. So it'll go 0, 1, I'm trying to click on it, 0, 1,
I love
2,
the ranges. It's
then
0,
it'll stop
3.
from 3. Yep, so 0, 3,
The,
MYR.
can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess this is messing with my head a little bit. So
Okay.
basically, it doesn't. Basically, it's not bracketed like, say. Basically, whatever's at the beginning, that's where it starts, and then whatever is the last index, it cuts off before that one.
Yeah, you could also say it stop. It's weird to think about, but so yeah, it starts on this number. It starts on this number, the 0. It stops on this number. So you can think of it, it stops there, so it doesn't print that.
Got
So
it.
I guess it stops before it, whichever makes more sense to your head, how you say it. It is easy to forget, but it's not too hard to catch, because if we said, okay, we wanted to print the first 3 letters and we said 0 to 2, then we just run it and we're like, oh, whoops. So it's okay if you mess it up, as long as you realize what the problem is. So yeah, it is a bit weird, but yeah, so this one inclusive, this one, it's called exclusive. It stops on that one, so it doesn't print it. Okay, so now if I wanted to print NDA, what would I put in the brackets?
Let's see. There's 3 to 8.
All right, I'm just gonna wait for everyone to put it in the chat as well. But thank you, David. Okay. 5, okay, yep, got a couple guesses. So let's see, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want to start at 4, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, yep. And then we can either just leave this blank because we want to go to the end. That would also work. Or we could put in the index of the A. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we want it to be 7 because it'll end before it gets to 7. So then it prints out NDA. But we could also, like some of you pointed out, we could just start at 4 and hit the colon, and it knows just to go to the end. So this is kind of like telling it there's no end point here. You just go until there's no more letters. And my replit is still loading. Let's have it run. I may have to just refresh it because it's not stopping. Yep, yeah, exactly. You guys are getting it. Okay, I'm refreshing my replit. Okay, so that's string slicing. Just like you said, this will print PPL. Okay, so what about this one? I have this example here. So fruit equals pineapple, slice equals fruit, 4 colon, print slice. What would that print? Yeah, it'll print apple. Yes, perfect. So if we slice pineapple, it turns into apple. And I'll just type that out just so you believe me. So we have fruit equals pineapple, print 4 to the end, apple. All right, so that's slicing in strings. So now let's talk about looping over strings. So we can loop over strings just like we looped over lists. And so does anyone have any kind of ideas about what type of loop we should use? Go ahead and put it in the chat. We have for loop or we have while loop. What would be the best for iterating over a string? Your hint is that it's the same as lists. Yep, it is the for loop. So for loops are really for iterating over collections of things. So in this case, a string. So if we wanted to do that, we could have my string equals hello world, using that for most of the examples. And then if I say for I in my string, print I. So this will go through each character in my string and print it. So it'll print H, E, L, L, O, space, W, O, R, L, D, exclamation mark. And all of these will be on a different line because we're calling the print statement separately for each thing in the string. So let's try that real quick. So let's just use this pineapple example. So we have fruit equals pineapple. Let's say for I in fruit, print I. And it'll run this loop for each item in fruit. So if we print that, it'll go. So it'll just spell out pineapple just on all different lines. Now, if I had spaces on either side and in the middle, it will also include those spaces there. So never forget your white space. The white space counts. Okay, so are there any questions so far about anything that we've talked about with loops, with strings, with using loops and strings, or just anything in general? Can you make it type something out on the same line? Yes, there, I'm pretty sure you can do like \r or something like that. Maybe, no. There's like, yeah, there's some fancy way of, there's some argument you can add to the print statement, but I don't remember it immediately. You could probably Google that though. It has something to do with the print statement, like it's an argument or something. But yes, that is possible. Okay, so now let's talk about the and keyword. So Python has several keywords. We've already learned some of them like and or, where you're comparing two things. There's also in, which can be used to check if a value is present inside a sequence. Here, I'm gonna make these bigger. Okay, such as a list or a string. So if we want to check if something is in a list or in a string, we can use the in keyword. So we can, the syntax for that is your value that you're looking for, and then in, and then the name of your string. So you have H in hello, and this will return true or false. So in this case, H is in hello. It's right here. And so this will return true. But what about this one? Cat in I love cats. Would that be true or false? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Yeah, true. So cat is in I love cats. And so I just wanted to make sure you got this here. It's not going to care that the actual word is cats. It's just looking for this exact string to match. So CAT is in that string. All right, what about E in ABC? Just real quickly.
False, because
False.
ABC is going to be A, B, C, D, E to make it true. But in this one, that's false.
Right, so there's no E in it, so it's false. Okay, so if we want to look at some examples of the in keyword, so I'm just going to use this pineapple one because I have it up and I think it's funny. So we can say print, let's say apple, oops, don't forget your quotes, apple in pineapple. Ah, not pineapple, we named it fruit, sorry. Apple in fruit. And it'll print true. All right. Now, if we print hello in fruit, this should print false. Okie doke. So that's basically how you can tell if you want to look for like a certain word in something or a certain letter in something else. That's how you can check it with strings. And so I don't want to overload you guys too much. So I see that we have about 15 minutes left. So let's see. We just have a couple more slides that we can do. And then I want to stop and just review strings and lists all together. So we looked at the end keyword. Next thing that I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, okay, we got a suggestion. All right, so print. So apple pine in fruit. False, because it's going to look for these exact characters in that order. So that was a good suggestion to check, but it will be false because it's not this exact string inside the string itself. Yes, so it is order specific. Have I tried grape? Let's see, is grape in pineapple? False. Good suggestion. Okay. But we can do it with other things. So like I said, if we wanted to, let's just make it my name again. You could even add like little, so if I say is ran in my name, it is. So, but if I did something like MYR, where the M is lowercase, that
makes
would,
it false.
yeah, that would, exactly, it would make it false. All right, let's see. Someone suggested rad. I appreciate that suggestion, but unfortunately it is false. But yeah, so it's going to look for this exact string. So it's not going to look just for the individual letters. It'll look for this exact string. It'll go through each thing inside the string and look for that pattern. Yep, and would be inside my name. So that would be true. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is changing strings. So last week we brought up this vocab word. It was mutable, which means able to change. Today we're going to talk about immutable, which is not able to change. This means you cannot change it directly. So once you create a string, so I have said fruit equals Miranda, I can't go in and change that string itself. If I needed to make another string, I would have to create it with a different variable. And this will make more sense as we go on into later weeks with some other of the exercises we'll do. But it basically just means like with lists, we could access things by indices, and then we could change them. So if we wanted to change the first value in a list, so I'm just going to say my list equals 1, 2, 3. If I wanted to change the first element in my list, I could say my list 0 equals 5. And then if we print my list, it'll be 5, 2, 3. So that's called, it's mutable. It's able to change. You can do something like this where you change it directly. But with strings, so if I have my string equals Miranda, and then I want to say my string 0 equals, let's say I want to make it lowercase, and I just do lowercase m. Now if I run this, it'll actually give me an error because it says string object does not support item assignment. This is basically just saying you can't change strings once you define them. If you do need to change it somehow, you have to create a new string using reassignment, which reassignment is just using the equal sign to create a new variable. So we can't replace a string character using indexing like we did for lists. So I have an example here. We have my string equals ABCD, and then change the first one to capital A. Will not work. Do not do this. Python will be mad at you. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left, and I know we've been going through really fast with strings and lists. So I'm going to save the last 10 minutes just to go through examples. So if you have suggestions for examples that you want to see, you can put those in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just be coming up with random ones that I have made up. Okay, so I wrote some notes down for myself. Okay. So, like I said, if there's anything specific that you want to see, just let me know. Until the end of class, I'll just be going over some examples. So let's say my string equals Miranda. And I want to show you that you can assign these to variables. So we've just been printing. So, but you can also assign it to a variable. So I'm going to say length equals len, my string. And I'm going to say other string equals, I'm going to add a bunch of spaces. And oops, exclamation points. And now, I say other length equals length other string. And I type really fast, I realize that. So I will try to go slower. But if I want to print those, so print and then print other length, I just want to show you that it does count the white space. Yeah, so this one is 7. It's just my name, just with the letters. This one is 17. It's got a bunch of spaces. It's got some punctuation. So if we want to, we already did some accessing indices inside. Okay, got a suggestion. Could I do some examples of changing strings? Yes, so that will be more applicable when we talk about string methods. So if you want to read ahead in the slides, we have some string methods where it will change it. I'm trying to think of examples that I could do that we've covered
you
some
can't
things.
change the string unless you need a method.
Yes, well, the method doesn't even change the string. Okay, I don't think I have any examples right now of changing the string. We'll get to that next time. But if you do want to look ahead, you are welcome to. Yeah, but that is a good question. That was very insightful of you to be thinking ahead like that. Okay, let's try concatenating strings. So other string equals now if I want to print my string plus other string, I'm going to end up with Miranda loves cats, which is very true. Okay. Let's see, other examples that I wanted to do, getting the last character of a string. So like we talked about, we can get the last character of a string. The last, I'm going to say last character equals my string. And then the index of this should be -1. Last character. So I'm going to run this and it should print A. If I want to get, I don't know, some other index of it, say 6. Oh, it'll also print A and count. Let's try 4. Be really funny if it was A. Okay, no, it's not. N. All right. So let's see, some other examples I wanted to do. Again, we got the last character of a string. And then we've got loop over a string. Okay, let's practice looping over a string. So let's do pineapple again. And so I could say for I in my string print I. We already did that. But what would happen if I had 4i in my string? Print my string. So go ahead and put in the chat. Donovan, I see your question, but I'll answer at the end of class, just to make sure we're on topic. All right, so if I have this, what will this end up printing?
It'll print the letters going downward.
Won't print individual letters. Yeah, so
The
some
whole
people,
word, I meant.
yeah, it'll print the whole word. So we'll have, if we run this, it'll print pineapple as many times as there are letters in pineapple. Yep, pineapple, pineapple, pineapple. So you don't have to just print each letter in the string. I just want you to see it goes through each letter, it counts them, and it'll save this. It'll save I as being each letter in the string through each iteration. But you don't necessarily have to do anything with that. Now, if I wanted to, okay, so here's a bit of a more advanced example. So I'm going to have another string. I'm going to name it substring. So a substring is just a smaller portion of a string. I'm going to start it out as empty. And now I'm going to say for I in my string, substring equals substring plus I. And I do see a question, I can be anything. Yes, this I here, you can name it anything. Most of the time, programmers will name it I, just tradition, but you could name it letter, you could name it item, you could really name it anything. As long as it's not a variable I've already defined, so you can't say for my string in my string, because that would mess it up, but you could name it I or anything. Okay, so question. What will this do? So if I have my string is pineapple, substring is empty string, there's nothing in it. For I in my string, substring equals substring plus I, and I want to print that. Print substring. What will happen now? Any guesses?
It would print out the word plus a space.
Not the word plus a space. All right, let's go through this one. So I've started out with this empty string. This is literally, it has nothing in it, no spaces or anything. And so first we're going to say for I in my string. So we're going to start with P. We're going to say substring equals substring plus I. So we're going to say P. So substring right now is empty. So it's going to be the empty string, which is going to be nothing, but it just is a string, plus P. Yeah, Donovan, exactly. So it'll start with P, and then we're going to print that. Next, I is equal to I, the iterator is equal to I, the letter in pineapple. And now we're going to have substring, which right now is P, and we're going to say substring equals substring plus I, so that's P plus our I, and it'll do that over and over. So it will iteratively add to this string. So let me just show you like this. So it kind of creates a little pyramid. So first it's P, then PI, then PIN.
Oh, it would print out the next letter plus a.
And it does this because we've started with this substring.
But
So we've started with this substring, which is empty. Okay, whoever's doing that, stop. So we started with this substring. It's empty, but it's going to keep adding the next letter in the word. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there are some methods you can do if you want to be fancy and make it look like it's typing it. That is correct. Okay, so I see right now it is at the top of the hour. So if you have to go, that is completely all right. If you want to stay, I'll be going a bit over lists for people that wanted me to keep doing list examples.
I'm good.
Okay,
See ya.
all right.
See you, Melinda.
Bye.
See ya.
Okay, yeah, if you were wanting to go over lists a little bit more, that's what I'll be doing for like the next 10 or 15 minutes or so, and then I'll probably log off.
See ya.
Bye. Okay, so if you are remaining, I'm assuming that you would like to see some list examples. If you have other things that you want to see, definitely let me know though. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.